safe and supported spaces.
Fascinating moment in my experience as a youth worker. I was 16 at the time. It was the first time I was ever working at camp. We get all the kids to take out their candy because you got to check for peanuts. They take out candy. One kid takes out some fruit roll-ups. One kid takes out gummy worms and all that, chips and all that. And one kid takes out a box of dry mac and cheese. And he said, "I like mac and cheese." I was like, he said, "Yeah, I like it dry." And 16-year-old me was just about to, you know, what the heck? Who likes that? And I kid you not, as you know, luckily we had senior counselors. This is why it's good to pair your younger staff with some older ones. When the senior counselor swooshes in and says, "Oh my God, is that dry mac and cheese? Can I have some?" I'm standing back here kind of just watching this unfold, no, you don't actually like dry mac and cheese. He opens up the box, puts his hand in it, and he's eating it. And the most wonderful thing happens next. All of the kids, the one with the fruit roll-up and the gummy bears and the chips, turn to this kid and say, "Hey, trade you." And you know, when the situation ended, I took my co-counselor aside and said, "Yo, what's going on? Do you actually like dry mac and cheese?" He's like, "No, man, that was disgusting." I was like, "Well, why'd you do it?" He said, "Sometimes we have to make split-second decisions that can change the course of someone's life." And what hit me was at the end of camp when the mother sent an email to the camp director at the time, Tom Patrick, and the email subject line said, "What have you done with my child?" ? "You have abducted my child, and you have given me a different one. My child's been to counseling, to special education, to therapy, to you name it. And we haven't been able to figure out what was wrong with him. But now he's making friends in the playground, he's confident, he's having fun. He gained that sense of joy, that sense of confidence."
Children learn patterns of behavior, pro-social or antisocial, based on their social environment, and will replicate these behaviors, making a high-quality after-school program beneficial in that it helps children and youth establish positive, healthy behaviors, which they will carry with them throughout their teen years.
The best practice is once you have the support to be able to have someone who is trans on your staff team, then you have got that template to be able to support whoever walks through your door. That's why I always kind of go into that place of being like your supervisor, your director, your manager. Always think about as this client that may or may not come in, are we going to be ready? You're all of those people, your coworker. And it also could be a parent who's on your team whose child is trans or gender diverse as well. So we want to support people before the person comes to you. In summary, the Ontario Human Rights Code speaks that people who are transgender or gender nonconforming come from all walks of life.
So I think the aspects that make up a really strong staff team are having a diverse group of youth workers. So each one of my youth workers are fantastic individuals, and they all have different strengths. So it's really great when we see their strengths coming together to make a really strong team. So, you know, we have some youth workers that are really sporty. We have some that are really crafty. We have some that are really great at managing a large group of rowdy kids. And we have some that are really great bringing kids aside and talking with them, you know, very quietly one-on-one. So I think the strength is really in having those diverse skills and making sure that the team that's together on any one day has a little bit of everything.
So one of the things that we do that is really great about OYA is we tend to hire out of our pool of volunteers. So we've had a couple staff now that haven't been volunteers, but they do come and they watch and they learn, and we do a little bit of hands-on sort of training ahead of time. So for example, if we hired someone and they were working today, they'd come here and they would watch me do what I'm doing, and then next week they'd take over that shift. So we make sure that they can see and get the ins and outs. But going back to the volunteer thing is that it's really great to hire out of our pool of volunteers, because for some of them, for example, Andrew volunteered here for 3 years before we hired him. So he already knew the ins and outs, he already knew the kids, he already knew the weaknesses and strengths of OYA, so that really played out really great for us.
The success of a program is reflected in the strength of the team. By watching the videos on each of the 3 pillars and absorbing the evidence-based information, As a frontline worker, you are already exercising the importance of a well-trained staff team. But training goes beyond the formal sit in front of the computer format facilitated by your supervisor or manager. It also exists in the regular communication between staff members and the motivation to seek out information on your own.
To have a cohesive staff team, it's really good, obviously, if they're going to be here consistently, so that helps with the other tutors and for the children. I allow them time at the end of each session to get together and just talk and chat. Did they see anything different in any of the children? How do you think that day went? And get them to write down a little bit of a logbook so that they can reflect back on that. And even though the homework club is offered 2 days in each location, it might not be the same staff. So having that log can really help so they can identify and not start from the beginning with an issue with somebody, that they know that it has been addressed and this is what has been put in place to address those issues. But allowing them those times to chat and to have a diverse background as well, so that if one has experience with one aspect of things, then another tutor can help with something else if that's needed.
So in order to fulfill the pillar of safety and support, we as frontline workers need to be aware of our own self first. We may be overwhelmed at times, as situations can honestly go beyond our capacity. So to counterbalance this, I encourage all of us to connect with our colleagues and supervisors for support and take additional professional development trainings such as motivational interviewing, collaborative problem solving, CPR first aid, whatever you can get your hands on, try to really get it in your back pocket. And this can provide us with skill sets and capacity to deal with the precipitating situations.
Continuously work towards building your capacity to address academic questions and, more importantly, participants' personal problems. Make sure you know the proper protocols of your agency in order to maintain the safe environment that is essential for fostering healthy growth.
Basically, we have to know exactly what to do in a situation of kind of the signs of abuse, or if a child has said something, but we don't ever want to, what's the word? I guess kind of put an idea in their head. We don't ever want to go up to them and say, has this happened to you? We always want to just be a support system there for them. Say, if you would like to talk about anything, feel free to come talk to us. We never want to make it seem their fault or kind of make it seem like they did something wrong.
So what is a climate that supports reporting? Like we talked about earlier, taking that child seriously, validating and not minimizing their concerns. That's their perspective. Really, really important to validate their perspective. You might have a different view, but you're not the one who's experienced that. Listen, I'm sorry this happened to you. What can I do to help? This is not your fault. Those are all words that support a climate where kids feel safe, that they will report. Following through, again, a climate where kids will trust you and will approach you.
If a worker has reasonable grounds to suspect that a child is or may be in need of protection, the worker must promptly report the suspicion and related information to his or her supervisor, who will then report the incident to Children's Aid Society. This includes disclosure by an individual over the age of 16 where younger siblings are at risk. Make sure to refer to your club's policies regarding this for proper procedures to follow.
As far as confidentiality and if there is a suspicion of abuse or neglect, so in the case where a child might have revealed it, making it clear to the child that I can't promise that I won't tell. That's the first thing that might come out of their mouth. They're like, oh, you won't tell anybody, right? So being honest that, if I feel like you're not safe, I am going to have to help you to get out of this unsafe situation. I can't promise that I won't tell, but I can promise you that I will listen and that I will help you. So just not making any kind of grandiose promises.
Create a climate that permits and supports reporting. Does anybody know what I mean by that? Because that's pretty significant. Having a formal process, and I'm going to talk about the need for, and that's really key, and that's missing in a lot of protocols, having a clear reporting mechanism, and having multiple ways of reporting is really critical. And again, typically, it's usually a face-to-face. Well, what happens to those kids who don't feel comfortable doing that? and what happens to those kids who witness and want to be able to say something, but don't feel equipped to be able to do that. So having a multi-prong approach, having multiple ways of reporting is actually what the research shows is best practice.
There's a lot of different youth coming from a lot of different backgrounds. So we have, families who have recently immigrated to Canada that are coming. So you have youth who are not only new to Canada, but also new to like learning the English language. And then we have youth who have been here for years, living here for years, but they all come from different backgrounds.
Canada is a multicultural place consisting of many religions, languages, and traditions, and it is likely that you have a child in your program whose family background reflects this. It is key that you are aware of these differences and that you, A, don't assume anything, and B, accommodate them. Do your research about that particular family's customs by communicating with your supervisor, reviewing external resources, and as long as it is respectful and causes no offense, try directly asking the family. Find ways to modify your programming to meet their cultural needs.
So we want to make sure that the environment that we have set up for kids to come into is an environment that's going to foster their success, and that we try to get rid of the barriers and things that might make that environment more difficult for them. It's an environment that's focused on them and achieving their goals, okay? Sometimes one of the first things to ask yourself when something's not going well, rather than what is the kid doing, is what's the environment that I've created? What does our environment look like? In residential programming with youth, this is something that we ask ourselves all the time. If we've got youth in custody or in a residential program, we have a lot of power to set the way that the program works, and there's so many different points of possibility for power struggles that come up when you've got a really well-developed program. And so to ask yourself constantly, for each kid, what's the environment that we've created for this kid? Is it the most conducive to success?
My favorite memory was, it was about a year ago, and they repainted the back of the building, and they cleared the wall, and they invited all the kids. It was like a games day kinda, and then like as a part of a fun event, we get to paint on the back of the wall, and everyone got to put their handprints, and like everyone got a chance to write a letter in the words belong, believe, and achieve, which is our little motto at the Boys and Girls Club. So like I could remember that being like a really good fun thing to do. I got a chance to like see how everyone can come together and be one, and just not be able to say like, why can't that person come or why can't this person come, but we all come together and we just have fun and have a lunch, have a dinner, a barbecue, It was really fun to see that come together happen.
This aspect of creating safe spaces deals with the emotional well-being of not just the participants, but the staff as well. The emotional climate of a critical hours program should be a space in which everyone feels comfortable expressing themselves without fear of being unwelcome or unsafe on account of their biological sex, gender identity or expression, sexual orientation, race or ethnicity, cultural background, religious affiliation, age, physical capability, learning ability, or mental health challenges.
I've definitely heard that homework club is either for kids who, like you said, have problems in school, or either have like dyslexia or other learning problems, or reading or writing. But homework club is really for anyone who just wants to get their homework done before going home. A lot of the kids will say, oh, I need to get my homework done so I can play video games at home tonight, so this is a great place for kids to do homework.
You don't need to debate about gender. You don't need to go into Trans 101. It's a public organization. Everyone is welcome here. We support all people and all diversity. And then kind of moving on. Okay, so that's it. And same with the supervisor, that they would have come back with the same comment. Short and sweet, really quick, nice and boring, moving on.
We really believe that it's really important not to label children. So using words like bully, using words like targets or victims, just to be really, really cautious of that, because when we're doing that, we are labeling kids. And very often, when you look at bullying behavior, it's a very fluid behavior. A kid could go out at recess, engage in bullying in the first 5 minutes, get bullied in the next 5 minutes. And so it's not this, I am a bully all the time or that. So we really want to be careful not to label children. it stigmatizes them.
Physically safe, we try and eliminate the obvious hazards. We just got some points in part of our hockey stand. We just got those taken off today by a local welder in the community, and that was a problem that we'd had for a while. Just those are a dangerous physical hazard. And just kind of as for safe space, the kids are young, so I haven't had that much of a concern in that encountered that much verbal or kind of bullying. I find that the staff here do really well at setting the tone is that this is a no bully zone. We don't tolerate that. Hockey and some of the sports, you know, a little bit of kind of back and forth chirping gets going, and that's all right. We just like to make sure that the kids are, that they're back on kind of friends terms at the end of the day. So we definitely enforce that right off the bat. On the first day, we say like, this is a no bullying zone. We keep our hands to ourselves. We keep mean thoughts to ourselves. You don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. And it seems to work. I think the staff do a really good job at promoting the positivity as well, and just kind of leaving this as a happy place for the kids rather than a place where the kids would have to worry about encountering bullies and just anything like that they might even have to encounter at school.
All staff and participants should be encouraged to interrupt language that may offend or hurt someone in a manner that is educational rather than confrontational. In other words, use these situations as learning moments and try to have a conversation about why certain words or phrases could be hurtful to someone and explore alternative ones.
We love the collaborative problem solving program. That training was some of the best training that we've received in order to make our program a better program. So it's an ongoing process, the collaborative problem solving. So it really involves starting out with the kids just to learn about what if there is a conflict resolution issue, sort of what is at the heart of that issue. So it really involves a lot of very in-depth and deep conversations with the kids to find out the root of the problem. And then one of the key components of that program is finding out what the kids think that they can do to help solve that problem. And it's never just a one-time conversation. You know, we sort of don't bring them in, find out the problem, get their idea of something to do, and they do it, and then we walk away. It's very much, there's a lot of follow-up. So, you know, we get suggestions from the kids about what they can do to make their situation better. Then we try those things, and then we bring them back, find out if it was working, if it did, what worked about it, if it didn't, what other kinds of things can we try.
You have an opportunity in your relationships with them to embrace a more collaborative style of communication. And what that means is allowing them the space to really have the option and the choice to make some decisions for themselves. And your role is to be there, as Ben mentioned, as a facilitator and to go through that process with them. It takes time. I can imagine that that's probably one of your biggest challenges, right? Is that you have a whole group of kids and they're all demanding your attention in different ways. But if you can carve out that space to have those conversations that are more collaborative, where you're asking the young person, well, what do you think about that? What would you like to do next? What would make you feel better if we do this differently the next time? And giving them some power back. You don't always have to make all of the decisions, right? You don't always have to be the one to fix it. You can ask them for their input, and you should ask them for their input. And then the power dynamic begins to shrink. And you can see that trust and that mutual respect start to grow.
This morning I actually used collaborative problem solving with one of our before school participants. So I was dealing with a little bit of rambunctious behavior in the morning, and but it was coming out as negative behavior. So he would hit other kids, or he would just like run and jump on furniture, the types of things he knew he wasn't supposed to be doing. So I sat down with him and I said, okay, what's going on? Do we have lots of energy? Are we angry? What's this, what's that? And I learned that it wasn't just an energy problem, but another one of the participants was actually kind of a trigger for him. He says, this one kid really bothers me all the time. So then I said, well, what can we do about that? And the conversation was totally just like, I was really surprised at how well it went, and I really feel confident that moving forward we're gonna have much better mornings.